Welcome back to another episode of Be Our Guest here on Musical Theater Radio. I am your host, as always, Jean-Paul Jovanoff. If you are looking to put on a play or musical that hasn't been done 100 times, then today's guests and their company you will want to pay attention to. There are a bunch of us here, so let's just get right into it. From the new company Uproar Theatrics, I want to welcome to the show Kyle Holmes and Laura Hall. Kyle, Laura, how you doing?
Hey, thanks for having us. All the way up in Canada.
Awesome. And you guys are on the West Coast right now?
Yes, the two of us are, yeah.
In California, not my West Coast, but
exactly
a little bit south. Awesome. So before we get into your company and all that stuff, I always like to get to know the people I'm talking to because, we've met, but everyone who's listening might not know you. Unless it's family, then they know you really well, which might not be a good thing. So I always like to get a 30-second bio of my guest. So Laura, let's start with you. Who is Laura Hall in 30 seconds?
Laura Hall is your classic overachiever type who got her BFA in Jazz Hands and Unemployment, also known as musical theater, from University of Cincinnati College Conservatory of Music, and went on to do the musical theater thing on Broadway and national tour and regional work and tons of developmental stuff in New York City. And then after 14 years in New York City said, hey, it's expensive here and we want to live in more than 450 square feet, and moved to California. How's that?
Where it's still expensive.
It's still expensive, but you get slightly more space. And there's much better rocks to climb and better hiking. So we can't complain.
Probably less snow as well.
Yeah.
Less than New York? Okay. and who is Kyle Holmes in 30 seconds?
Oh my gosh. Kyle found theater on accident and grew up thinking he wanted to be a theater teacher. And then he started doing jazz hands like Laura and said, there's no way I can get a degree in this. So he became an English major and went on to teach high school English. And then my first year into teaching high school English, the theater teacher retired and the principal said, do you want to do this? And I said, I guess I'm going back. And I taught theater, high school theater for the past 10 years before leaving that in this last school year and stepping away from that to take a job working in education with the state and also to start Uproar Theatrics with Laura.
Very cool. Very cool. So before we get to Uproar again, were you both always into theater and musical theater growing up, or were you the black sheeps of the family? Was that a family thing or were you the black sheeps? Laura?
Well, no one in my family did theater, so I was kind of a black sheep, but I don't know, that's not like a weird rogue thing to do growing up, it's just like one of those annoying theater kids that I'm sure I was insufferable when I was 12 and in community theater. But no theater people in our family, just educational professionals and, normal salt of the earth folk.
Kyle?
My younger brother was really into dance. He did a lot of competitive dance, and then that kind of like ventured him into doing community theater productions. And my mom called me one day, or called my dad at the time and just said like, hey, we're here for his auditions and they need more boys. And so
classic,
I think you should come out here. And I said, no, I don't really want to do that. And anyways, I ended up doing that play, and then heading into high school, theater was my fourth alternate elective choice. And I showed up on the first day of high school freshman year, and my first period class was beginning theater. And so been in it ever since.
You are a black sheep then. I think that makes you count as the black sheep.
Yeah, my dad is a software engineer who worked at Intel his entire career, and and his father was an engineer, and so the performing arts were definitely not in the bloodline leading up to me.
Was there any moment for either of you when you were thinking of doing something else that wasn't art, sort of theater, that you thought, oh, maybe I could do this as a profession? Laura?
I thought I was going to go into some kind of like either journalism or molecular biology up until like junior year in high school. And like, I'll just double major in theater. And like, you can't do that and get a BFA at the same time. So then I realized is like, no, I want to drink from the fire hose. Let's do this. So much to my parents' deep chagrin. I'm sure they were not thrilled about that decision.
Though I would love to have you come in for an audition and just ask you about microbiology. Because put that on your resume as right below, music man. So
we have a piece that we just picked up that mentions mitochondria as the powerhouse of the cell, and I lost my mind when I read that, because that feels like a really niche-y one thing that everybody remembers from biology moment. It was fantastic.
Kyle, were you ever thinking about being a software engineer? Was that ever?
No, there was never a point in my life where I wanted that. I did always want to be a teacher and go into education. And then the more theater that I did, the more that I fell in love with this thing. And then, like I said, I wanted to be a theater teacher. And, when you start venturing into education, specifically like credentialing programs, they're up until a few years ago, there wasn't a theater credential in the state of California. And so to say I want to be a theater teacher, there's not really a training avenue for that through the certification and credentialing in the state of California, and in most states for that matter. And so, it felt more realistic for me to say, I'm going to go teach English, and we're going to bring these texts to life in my classroom, and I'm going to make kids care about Shakespeare and all of these other things through that avenue. And then, like I said, it was just really fortunate that opportunity presented itself. And now that I've been through, 10 years of being a high school theater teacher, I love education and I care about education, but I know that for me to feel really happy and fulfilled, art has to be a piece of that in some way. And so that's been really helpful for me to, figure out that connection needs to be there for me to feel happy with the work I'm doing.
I find that really curious, though, that there isn't anything for the theater for education. They obviously have math, they have science, do they have physical education and others, but they don't have theater.
Yeah, it's been part of a really big push the past few years, and a lot of these nonprofits in the United States have done just a really great job working with legislators to get the certification and credentialing put out there and put into law in the state of California. And so there's now a dance credential and a theater credential. And now, of course, all of the colleges and universities that offer teacher training are getting caught up in how to train their own educators and how to train future educators to be credentialed in that. And so, I think it's a really, really great thing, and I'm glad that it's finally happening here.
Very cool. So I'm curious about the parallel lines that is Laura and Kyle. How did those two lines converge?
Laura and Kyle grew up in the mountains of Northern California together, and we attended the same arts camp together, where we had this really very cool ensemble-based theater program where we were 12 and doing Suzuki. It was intense. A lot of devised theater stuff. So we both ended up growing up, aging out of the program, and then returning as teachers. So this has been a through line in our life, this very special arts camp, Sugarloaf Fine Arts Camp, up in the mountains of California. So we have stayed in contact and been able to watch each other grow as humans and artists for the past 2 decades. And we continued to just find each other and connect. And a lot of this was born out of a pandemic trivia group, honestly, where we saw each other once a week on Thursday nights, and we're like, man, this is so great. Let's have a company together. Obviously, that's the next step, I think.
Obviously. You just answered a question about Sweeney Todd, and then, hey, let's start a company together.
Yeah, exactly.
So who came up with the idea first? Was it Kyle or you, Laura, or was it somebody else?
Yeah, so the much larger, broader backstory here is that another one of our founders, David, and I wrote a musical together a few years ago called Ranked. And it's this musical about, we're writing about our students' experiences at Granite Bay High School where I worked. And the pivotal moment that's important for everyone to know is that we wrote this musical about kids and parents doing whatever it took to get ahead academically, including paying for their grades. And then 2 weeks before we were set to open, the college admissions scandal happened. And so that kind of like slingshotted our musical into this like national conversation. We were on NPR's morning edition. The second week we were running, and it was like a dystopian high school musical foresaw the college admissions scandal. So then our inbox was just exploding with people wanting to learn more about the show or ask if they could put the show on at their own school, because academic pressure was a problem that their students were dealing with, and they wanted to, right? Like, that's why we love theater, is like, how can we tell meaningful stories that are going to resonate with our community and help us gain a deeper understanding of something that's relevant to all of us, not just some abstract group far away, right? And so that led us down this journey of learning about licensing, David and I, and figuring out like, how do we license our play to other people? What do we do to make that happen? And so we were really, I mean, truly, as a theater teacher, I was on the other end of those licensing contracts all the time. And so I knew the gist of what they needed to say. And so we kind of like pieced together our own licensing contract. And we had a few schools that were willing to try it, one in Cupertino, California, and then another one in Rhode Island, Narragansett High School. And they, within the first year, put our show up before there was really kind of any conversation about a company. And then as the pandemic hit, we were hearing more and more from schools that wanted to do this. And then we were starting to hear back from the people that had already performed Ranked saying, hey, what else do you have? And we were like, we don't have anything. We just wrote one show. But in conversations with them, they were telling us what they wanted, which was they loved that the show had a big cast. They loved that it was relevant to their students. They loved that it didn't talk down to teenage experiences. They loved that we were sending them digital things, right? And so like, it just kind of started to create this like laundry list of things that people wanted that they weren't getting. And that's when David and I first said like, hey, we think we might have something here in the shape of an idea. And we reached out to our lawyer at the time, Nathan Sheffield, who was representing us and helping us with Ranked and its like journey to New York City. And we said like, hey, if we have another show or two in mind that we think we could potentially manage the licensing for, and then we would be licensing 2 or 3 shows, like, could you help us with all that contract work? And here's why. And he said, I think this is a really good idea. I want to be a part of it. I don't want to charge you my hourly rate for that because you can't afford it. Yeah. we couldn't. And so that was kind of like those first pieces. And then we really quickly realized that we needed someone on our team who had a really great like perception and radar for new work that had not been developed yet or was not already like in these licensing wheelhouses. And David and I both grew up with Laura and knew Laura really well and knew that she had been doing a lot of developmental work. And so she was kind of like that last piece to this team of like, great, we've got the educator, we've got the composer and David, we've got the lawyer, and now we've got Laura, the person who has a really great network of new work to try and like, and that was kind of like how the whole team came together.
Very cool.
And from my perspective, I was getting frustrated having worked on so many incredible developmental pieces in the city through these incredible organizations, really awarded pieces, and watching them have life and then pause and wait for so many external factors that had nothing to do with the integrity and quality of the piece to line it up to get to its commercial premiere, essentially. And only then would licensing companies be interested in looking at it, right? And so this is a way to help our, we're very pro writer in our company. We've structured our finances around it, how we respond to writers, because we are arts lovers first and foremost, not, we don't exist in some glass tower somewhere with blazers on, but that's really important to us. So we wanted to give them an avenue to make money while they're on their way to essentially a first class premiere. And we also don't think having that, like being successful on Broadway is the only avenue to having your show licensed, nor should it be the gatekeeper. So by nature of what we're doing with an all digital model, we don't have to take risks on, is this piece going to be worth X amount of dollars to spend on printing and storing and shipping and dealing with that, which allows us to pick up really beautiful, worthwhile pieces that are telling stories that potentially might not get to be licensed incredibly frequently. But we have been frustrated that the landscape is such that only the things that kind of filter into the top 40 or have huge licensing potential are the only ones that get there. So we're trying to open up our scope and broaden our horizons and kind of create alternate pipelines for theater, because it can't just be defined by Broadway. It's far too large and beautiful of an art form to be limited by this myopic filter that we've been looking at it for so long.
What are some of Uproar Theatrics, philosophies and mandates? Because I know you have some original stuff that, when I go on the website. So tell us a little bit more about that.
I think one of the first things is that we really noticed there's not a lot of content in the age range for the predominant number of people performing right now, right? So when you look at like the number of people that are performing live theater on any given day, 99% of them are between the ages of 15 and 30, right? Went through high school theaters and community theaters and collegiate theaters. And yet the work being written is being written for the work being licensed is usually what's coming from Broadway, which is being written for Broadway audiences, which is not being written for these young people. So that was kind of one of the very first things that we outlined, was we want to find really incredible work that is being written for this age range, regardless of what anyone's opinions on whether it can be commercially successful or not is. So that's kind of that first benchmark, is this telling a story about 15 to 30-year-olds in a really meaningful way?
The second benchmark is a quality benchmark for us. That really matters. We understand a lot of pieces are being written to kind of fill the void right now. We are quite insistent on curating the pieces that show up on our website to make sure everybody knows when they come to Uproar, they're going to get incredible quality pieces by incredible writers that would not be like, could you see this at the public? Could you see this at New World Stages? Like that, it has to thread that needle. We talk about this a lot at Uproar, of it being relevant and meaty and juicy to work on for young people. But at the same time, it has to have such integrity that adults would pay money to sit in the audience for, right? That really matters to us. So the quality factor also matters.
And do you take new shows that are looking for a licensing? How does that work?
Yeah, well, part of this core value of being very pro writer is we are taking submissions. You can pop over to the website, and on the About Us or the Contact Us page, there's information about specifically what we're looking for. We don't want to limit it to just agency submissions or meeting certain criteria. Good pieces are good pieces. And yes, we need something to market and license, and the pieces have to be completed, and for the most part have, several productions under their belt and iterations, because that's such an important part of the process for writers. But that's important to us, that people can access that. And that opens up for different stories to be told, because this pipeline for creators kind of historically in the past has siphoned away, like, if you haven't been able to take piano lessons your whole life, right? How are you going to get to the point where you can get into some of these top programs? There are so many beautiful creators out there. Kyle, yes, you're raising your hand, Kyle.
Yes. I was just going to say, one of the fascinating things for David and I that was a big component on all of this is we were getting ready to do a 29-hour reading of our show in New York. And we had been doing licensing up until this point. And we invited a lot of the licensing houses to come out to this reading. And something else that I didn't mention is that HBO is in the middle of doing a documentary on this musical that we wrote because of like the serendipity of all of it. And so HBO is filming this 29-hour reading, and they're going to be there, and that's on all the invitations. And it was just crickets from everyone. And then, you know, the more conversations we had, the more we learned. Obviously, we were very green heading into this. The more we learned that, like, oh, a lot of these companies want, you know, 2 New York productions before they will consider yada yada. And it just, we were like, we're already generating revenue. We're already generating revenue, and HBO's creating a documentary on our show, which is going to generate more revenue. And that's still not enough for anyone to care. Who else are they saying no to, or who else is not doing enough to reach these bars? And those are the people that we need to go see what they've written.
Yeah, no offense to New York, but Broadway isn't the be all and end all of the musical theater world. You know what? I live in Toronto, and I know that's a big one as well. And you got the West End, you got Broadway, but you also have Topeka, Kansas. You have Calgary, Alberta. You have Sydney and Australia. You have Warsaw. Like, you have all these places that aren't necessarily musical theater hubs. And, you know, if you play there, I would rather play 400 small towns than, you know, a 2-week run on Broadway, because you know, you reach more people and you have a better experience, I think. But
well, and the last 10 years, the internet has just changed the game in how we all learn about new pieces. You know, we're not dependent on Tower Records going there and buying the cast recording anymore, or the reviews necessarily trickling down from these big newspapers to find out everything we can learn about a piece. You know, we have shows that are not even written yet that are recording concept albums that are getting to the top of the Billboard charts. We have shows that gain viral followings, and that is the actual thing that propels them to their New York production. Like, the whole model is shifting, and it seems foolish to not leverage that and take advantage of it and democratize this process a little bit more, since everyone can see and listen to and read everything now. It's quite exciting.
So Uproar Theatrics does everything digital. I love the fact that, explain why you went that way and how it works for your company.
It started with, you know, I mean, David and I, when we were working on Ranked, we were copying everything we knew, which was we print out 40 copies of our script and libretto and our sheet music, and we package it in a box and we send it to the school that is doing the licensing, and then they mail it back to us, and then we assess the damage and deduct from their deposit, and we do all of that. And honestly, it was a pain in the ass, and it was not a good use of our time. And it was, you know, like, we didn't have anywhere to store these boxes of scripts and the overhead on printing a set. And it was like, okay, we have 3 sets of scripts. What the hell do we do if we have 4 licenses at the same time? Is that worth us printing another? And so we were in the middle of this huge headache of running our own shop and doing this. And then COVID happened, and we had a few schools reach out to us and say, like, what do you want us to do with all of these scripts that all of these kids have? They were all just sent home. And we were like, you know what? We don't want them anymore. We can move on from here. And that led us into experimenting with just watermarking, which we were already doing for perusals. We were, you know, watermarking every page and sending it off to someone with their name on it and an expiration date. And then Laura jumped on the team and said, you know, this isn't how film and television works.
Yeah, like, I get audition signs all the time where it just has like my giant name watermarked on the diagonal, like do not distribute on it. And like, why can't we just do that? So one of the really cool things about Uproar is every single one of our pieces you can immediately read for free on the website, and it'll automatically generate. You put in your information, it'll generate a watermarked perusal copy for you. You can read it. It doesn't make any sense that, you know, someone's got to like buy the book and then wait for it to ship in 3 weeks and then get it and realize, oh, this isn't right for my group. but then you end up with a nice full bookshelf, I guess. But we wanted to kind of remove the barrier to entry there and allow people to explore the work as much as possible. And the watermark solution works so many ways, along with protecting those writers too, because if it ends up on Scribd or somewhere on the internet, it's so easy to figure out who we need to get on the case for to get it removed, because there's a big old watermark on it, you know. And if somebody really wanted to take the time to scan a hard copy of whatever, you know, there's really no tracing it. But this allows us to kind of keep that artistic control and power back with the creators of the piece as well, which is quite cool.
I'm curious with the watermark. That's a great idea, because yeah, why would I wait 3 weeks when I'm interested in it now? I just go on and I can read it online. So when they're sent the copies, the watermark, is it the name of, I'm just curious, is it the name of the show? Is it, say, Uproar Theatrics, or is it like ABC High School? So you know exactly who did it.
Yeah,
you got it.
it's the person, the organization, the date they're accessing it. I mean, it's all of the things. And you're right. I mean, it's been so interesting to see theater teachers gravitate more towards shows that they can get access to. Right. Mm-hmm. I mean, if I'm looking for a show and it's the middle of summer and I'm not in my classroom and I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do that fall, the first place I'm going to look is anything I can get my hands on that there's a digital perusal of, because that's the easiest thing. That immediately makes those shows more likely to be licensed than if there's not a digital version and they have to wait 3 weeks. Yeah. So the whole industry's moving this way, but the free perusals are still catching up. Most of these digital copies you have to buy like the e-edition of if you want to read. So you're still going to pay $10 to read through it and decide if you want to perform it or not.
So I guess it's important to establish that we only license. That's all we do. We don't publish. Which is uncoupling something that previously is quite tied together in our industry, which allows us a whole lot more freedom. One of the other really awesome things about all digital model is it allows our creators to continually tweak their pieces if they want. If they see a production of their piece and say, you know what, that line's always driven me crazy, I'd like to fix it. You know, they send us the PDF and the next day that's the new perused version. So we want to give our creators the opportunity to change their pieces if they would like. We want to use it as an opportunity to continually workshop and evolve a piece, because that's how it is in the real world, right? Like things change, things shift. And like when I grew up in high school, you know, you'd get your hard copy and it's perfectly bound and it descends from the heavens. And the play was always intended to be exactly this wording and things like that. And then I would go into like workshop productions in the professional setting and realize like how not like that in the real world it is, you know, like people are ripping apart acts and giving characters different songs that belong to other people and all this. It's not indicative of reality. And the more we can actually kind of play a part in educating the next generation of theater creators about, hey, none of this is holy. This is all beautiful and important. And sometimes it changes and it's malleable, but that's our art, baby. It's not the Bible.
So when did you start Uproar? How long ago was that?
We started scheming a year ago. I think we started chatting about it, but we launched officially June 1st, somewhere around there, June 4th, I think. So we're a baby new company and it's quite exciting to get the momentum that we're getting, and license requests are coming in and we're getting lots of submissions, and it's been a really exciting past couple of months.
That's very cool. Congratulations on starting the company in general and starting it during a pandemic. And when you took advantage of a terrible situation and you turned it into something important, you know, for yourselves and for anyone involved, be it their creatives or the high school, you know, teachers or directors or whomever. So again, big kudos to the both of you and your partners.
Thank you. It's I love, I mean, one of the most fun things for us is we have this now network of people that are recommending shows to us from long ago that have been put on a shelf. And it's just so fun for us to dive into these pieces and then to go to the creators and say, we think people are going to care about this. And they go, really? you really think someone's going to care about this show right now? And we go, yeah, we think so. And so that's been really fun for us, is to, start giving a lot of these shows a second life or a third life. And, it kind of goes back to what you were saying earlier, is would you rather be on Broadway for 2 weeks, or would you rather be in, theaters, small theater houses across the country? And I think there's so much value in that. It's been really cool.
There, again, congratulations. What's the website that everyone can go to?
uproartheatrics.com, and then follow us at Uproar Theatrics on all of the different social medias. We're really trying to, through our social media, engage with not just theater teachers, but also creators and theater directors and actors and young people, and share this new work, this new exciting work with them, and really kind of turn our social media into a conduit for them to learn about new up and coming works, right? In addition to kind of these other avenues that we've been talking about. And so it's been really fun to see people learning about the shows at the Uproar catalog, and commenting and following, and the, those new discoveries that they're experiencing.
Well, thank you both for coming on today and talking to me. But before we go, I always ask 3 questions of my guests. Now, there's no right or wrong answer, but there might be a wrong answer depending on what we think of your answer. All right. So my first question, and Laura, we'll get you to answer it first. To the two of you, it's not, this one's the nice one. This is the good one. This is easy enough. What creator or team within musical theaters had a great influence on you? Now, it could be a composer, a lyricist, director, producer, actor, stage manager, even. Could be somebody famous, not famous, maybe a teacher or something like that. So who has had a good influence on you?
Boy, all right. This is a pretty basic musical theater person answer, but watching Stephen Sondheim's lyrics stay the same, but the more we grow and advance as humans, the more they mean. It's like every single time I revisit a show, I feel like I have a new Rosetta Stone to unlock it, because I'm the one that's growing up and maturing. So I think let's say that, and let's say some weird oddball things like training with like the City Company at one point, getting real weird with it. But having that ensemble base has really affected how broadened my horizons in terms of what's possible in theater, instead of just growing up thinking, oh, it's just like Hello Dolly, but slightly different every time. Yeah.
And you, Kyle?
Oh my goodness. From a musical theater writing standpoint, I mean, I love that I keep falling in love with new pieces along the way. And every time I think I've found my new favorite musical, I then get to go experience something that blows it away even more. Seeing Come From Away in New York City was just like it was hugely influential for me, being in a room filled with people that were crying and laughing for 90 minutes straight, and just really like unlocking that that comedy and that sensitivity that can come simultaneously, right, through those moments. So that, I think that was huge for me, just from a writing standpoint, of being able to like thread that needle of being able to do both, and both of those things, meaning, and then, I'll just say that.
Okay. Well, both are correct answers. So
pass that one. All right. Next.
And I want to get down to New York and see Come From Away down there, because I saw it here in Toronto, and I'm always curious. And I got to meet the cast afterwards. We did a talk back with some students I work with, and I said, have you ever seen it in New York? And do the same jokes and things like that hit the same down there? Because they make references that I'm like, yeah, I know all this stuff. I've been to Newfoundland, I've been to Gander, I know all those weird references they do. Right. And I'm always curious how they hit. So I want to go down to New York and hear if they laugh at the same places that I know. So
we got to get you down there and check it out.
It was pretty electric, start to finish.
Yeah, I love that show. It's one of my favorites. I've seen it a couple of times.
Agreed.
So, all right. So I'll give you a half point each. Well, maybe a half point for Kyle because he mentioned Come From Away. Laura, you did not mention Come From Away, so I'm gonna have to give him a half point.
Dang it!
What if I told you that I went and saw Come From Away because Laura told me to go see Come From Away? Does that bring her back?
That counts, right? That counts.
All right, fine. You're working as a team against me here, but all
Thank
right,
you so much.
1.5 points for both of you.
Okay.
So, all right, that seems fair. All right, question number 2. At Uproar Theatrics, if you were to receive a play or musical about microbiology or software engineering, would it get an automatic entry to the company's database?
Oh boy, it would be talking my love language, that's for sure. But you know what? Like oftentimes the nichier the pieces and the more specific the subject matter, the more universal it is. I really do believe that to be true. And the problem with a lot of theater pieces for young people is they're about young people in young people situations and forget that these are nuanced, thoughtful, in-depth human beings with lots of things going on. And of course we can talk about like young people dealing with microbiology. I would love to see that.
Yeah, one of the best comments we saw recently was a high school theater teacher saying, I would love to find more plays about high school age students where the character description reads more than a high school student. And we were just like, yeah, that's it. And we're talking a lot about high school because the market is huge, but I mean, for any of these young characters, these young stories, right? People in their early 20s, like what an experience it's been for people in their early 20s, the past decade, right? Where they're all moving back home after college and dealing with unemployment and all these things. I think there's just so much complexity there that we really see when the character description reads an aspiring computer scientist, right? Or an aspiring microbiologist. And that unlocks just so much depth and complexity to these stories that we're just so intrigued by. So
but they're already like 5 points ahead. If they're, straight to the top of the list.
Okay, it's still got to be vetted a little bit, but
a little bit,
we'll give them a little bit better look. All right, both correct answers. I will give you 1 point each.
Great.
All right, final question. We're going to get to know who you truly are with this last one. All right, food in the theater or cell phones in the theater? What is worse?
Candy wrappers. Final answer.
Okay, Kyle.
Yeah, it's candy wrappers for sure. In agreement.
All right.
What world do you live in where you think that that's an acceptable thing to do? Wow. Sorry, I've got some feelings. I don't know. I think there is something to be explored with technology and theater, and in a way that takes care of the intellectual property of the creators and continues to keep theater sacred. But I still think there's stuff there to play with.
Laura's answer is much more official than mine. Was simply going to be, I'm guilty of cell phone in the theater, but but it's like, I think there's a discreet way to be like, wait a minute, this is my mom, is there an emergency? And you glance at it and put it away. And that is not as nearly as disruptive as rappers.
But you're not like picking up the phone at the matinee.
Of course not.
I'm being,
no,
hello?
I'm not like, and I'm not, no, not like texting or anything like that, but like,
good, because this company was about to dissolve right there.
No, I know. No, I mean like glancing at the phone versus candy wrappers.
Yeah.
Candy wrappers,
I think that's candy wrappers is the greater of the evils there.
Yeah.
Final answer.
I would have accepted both are terrible. So we'll give you points. And now I have to be honest. I have to let you know I was hired by your other two partners to test your cohesiveness on this final question.
Are we still compatible? Did we pass?
I'm going to have to take the information back to them.
Great.
So you'll be hearing from them.
Oh my goodness.
Laura, Kyle, congratulations again on the company creating it. I look forward to seeing what shows you bring forward and introduce to these younger people and the future of musical theater, because like you said, everybody can do Oklahoma and all these big names, but to discover these new shows and for these younger 15 to 30s to bring forth and help nurture these new shows is very exciting. So congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having us and just giving a platform for all of the maybe non-mainstream New York theater artists out there to share their stories, and it's very exciting.
My pleasure. My pleasure. All right. We were just speaking with Laura Hall and Kyle Holmes, two of the founders of Uproar Theatrics. Tune in next week as we'll speak with another guest or guests about their life, love, and passion. That is musical theater. I am your host, as always, Jean-Paul Jovanoff. And until next time, I'll see you when I see you.